What's up everyone, it's Kelly and today I've got another Nail Polish 101 video for you. So if you aren't familiar with my channel, Nail Polish 101 is an ongoing series that I do where I talk about the absolute basics of nail polish and nail care, and today we're going to be talking all about dotting tools. So first we'll talk about what they are and how to use them, then we can talk about best practices and tips. So yeah, without further ado, let's just dive in. Okay, so starting off with what is a dotting tool? Basically, a dotting tool is any tool that you use to create dots on your nails. There are a lot of tools that are created specifically for this purpose. They're actually pretty inexpensive. You can usually get a kit of them and they come in a variety of different sizes so you can create different size dots on your nail, but you don't have to use nail polish specific tools. There are actually a lot of really easy tools you can use that you already have at home. Some of the most common tools that I see are toothpicks or orange wood sticks. I see a lot of people use bobby pins. I've even used pencils and pens when I'm in a bind. Now I will say there is a benefit to using the actual tools that are made specifically for nail polish. These are better because you can clean them a little bit more efficiently. There are some makeshift tools that you really can't clean nail polish off of, like for example a toothpick. And also with pointier products like a toothpick or a pencil, you might press too hard and actually ruin the base color underneath. So there is good reasons to use the actual dotting tools that are made for this purpose, but you don't necessarily have to. I think over time, as you invest in more nail polish products, you can start to buy products like this. So like I said, what a dotting tool does is it creates dots on your nail, and this can be useful for so many different types of manicures. Obviously, there are plenty of nail art looks that you can do using polka dots, circles in general. You can always have them for eyes, for details. You can draw other round things like grapes or cherries or anything like that. You can also use them to create ruffle designs on your nail. You can create fun French manicure tips on your nails. There's really a lot of different ways that you can play around with dotting tools. So let's talk about tips for how best to use them. The biggest problem that I see when people first get into using dotting tools is they find that there's a lack of consistency when they're drawing dots. So of course, if you want to have polka dot nails, you want to have consistent size dots and consistent shape dots across your nail. Otherwise, it's probably not going to look as polka dotty. So here are my tips for how to get consistent sizes and for how to make them look good every single time. Tip number one is you want to be mindful of the size of the tool. Like I said, there are different size dotting tools and they range from being really, really small to being really big. And you want to keep that in mind based on whatever design you're doing on your nails. There are certain designs that might look better with a smaller dotting tool, and there are certain designs that might look better with a bigger dotting tool. You also want to keep in mind the size of your nail. I have pretty small nails, so I tend to use smaller dotting tools, especially when I'm doing more sparse designs. But if I want to do something that really fills up my whole nail, then I use a bigger dotting tool. So tip number two is the actual application of the dotting tool with the polish on it. The way that I always recommend using dotting tools is to put your polish onto a mat or onto a piece of scrap paper, dip your dotting tool into that puddle of nail polish, and then dot that onto your nail. Some people swear by dipping their dotting tool into the bottle of nail polish. I just find that that's less consistent. Personally, I like to have a little puddle of nail polish to work with, and I think that that always gives me more consistent results. Tip number three is to always dip your dotting tool every single time. So if you are dotting 3 dots onto your nail, the natural inclination would be to dip your dotting tool into the puddle of nail polish and then go dot, dot, dot. However, each time you're dotting your dotting tool onto your nail, you're gonna have less polish on there. So the dot is gonna get smaller and smaller each time. So the best way to do it is to dip, dot, dip, dot, dip, dot. And that's going to be the way to get the most consistent size dots. If you're dipping every single time, then you are more likely to get the same sized finished product every single time. Tip number 4 is you do want to practice. And this is something that you'll probably never stop doing. I have been doing my nails and doing nail art for over 10 years now, and I practice on a mat every single time I use a dotting tool. I just like to make sure that the dots and the dotting tool that I'm using are going to work properly for the design. So when I dip my dotting tool into my puddle of nail polish, I like to just try a couple of dots on the piece of scrap paper or the mat that I'm using before I go in and actually do it on my nail. And it seems like there's really not a purpose to this, but for me, I think it's a good way to see if the dotting tool is working properly. Sometimes there can be little bits that you maybe can't see on the dotting tool and it'll create a less consistent shape dot. And it also kind of just helps your hand get used to the motion of doing it before you start applying it onto the actual canvas, which is your nail. And then tip number 5, which is probably the biggest one, is you want to apply your dotting tool with a light touch. This is something that I touched on in the beginning of this video where I mentioned that some DIY tools will kind of push through your base polish and potentially destroy your manicure. And that can happen with dotting tools as well. The lighter of a touch that you're using, the less likely you are to push down too hard and actually create a missing groove in your nail. Because you want to practice not pressing down too hard on your nail, and you do want to have a nice light touch. It's kind of the same as if you were writing something down with a pen. If you press down really hard, you could potentially rip through the paper. But if you're just applying a normal semi-light pressure, then you're just going to be able to write smoothly onto that piece of paper. Now, as far as types of polish that you can use with dotting tools, really the world is your oyster. You can use whatever you want. Obviously, I find that opaque polishes work the best because you don't want to have to do multiple coats of a dot on your nail, especially because it is a little bit difficult to make consistent. Toppers can work in certain instances, but it doesn't really work that easily if you're using a topper that has, for example, bigger flakes in it or bigger glitters, because it's not going to look very circular. But you can actually use dotting tools for other purposes than creating dots on your nails. Sometimes I do like to use them as a way to apply glitters onto my nail. But yeah, really, you can experiment with whatever you want and you can probably create some really cool designs and really cool finishes using your dotting tool. So now that we've gone over the tips, let's talk about how to clean your dotting tool. Like I said, when you're using DIY dotting tools, they're probably not going to be so easy to clean. When it comes to toothpicks and bobby pins and those sort of things, they don't really react well to nail polish remover or acetone, so you're not going to have an easy time cleaning those. But I'll be honest, sometimes I do reuse those DIY dotting tools. I have some toothpicks that are absolutely covered in nail polish, and once they're fully dry, I feel like I'm pretty comfortable just using them for different colors and manicures, so I don't have too much of an issue with that. But just something to keep in mind, the more you use something like a toothpick, the bigger the dot is going to be because you're going to have more product crusted onto the tip there, so it is going to get bigger and bigger over time. So the way that I like to clean my dotting tools is once I'm done, and the polish can be wet or dry, it really doesn't matter, but I will take a cotton ball, I will soak it in acetone or nail polish remover, and then I will press my dotting tool into it and I will just wiggle it back and forth. And then when I pull away the dotting tool, it should be clean and good to go. Dotting tools that are made specifically for the purpose of nail art are usually acetone and nail polish resistant, so you don't have to worry about that. I have never had an issue with them melting away. The only time I've had issues is sometimes the middle portion of the dotting tool where you hold it. If you're using a cheaper material one or a plastic one, sometimes those can start to melt away, so I try not to get any acetone or remover on the center of the dotting tool. I just like to get it on the metal parts. So yeah, that is my little guide for how to use dotting tools, how to clean them. There are really so many different ways that you can use dotting tools. If you guys are interested, I can do a little compilation of nail art designs. I think it's just such a fun, beginner-friendly way to get into nail art because it doesn't require any freehanding skill, and over time, dotting tools become easier to use and you can be more consistent with them. But also, even if your dots aren't perfect, I feel like the end result tends to look really good. So yeah, as always, if you have any questions, please leave them in the comments. I'm happy to answer them. If you have any requests for something you'd like to see in my Nail Polish 101 series, definitely let me know in the comments. I will link the whole series up in the cards so you can check that out if you're interested. If you enjoy my Nail Polish 101, please hit that like button. It really helps me out. It lets me know I'm doing a good job. If you're not already subscribed to my channel, I would really appreciate if you could subscribe. I love you all, and I will see you all in my next video. Bye. Today's Would You Rather is a Would You Rather based on today's video, because this one got me thinking, would you rather use dotting tools or striping tape for a nail art manicure? And just a little shameless self-promotion, I did do a video on how to use striping tape as well, but this is actually kind of a difficult question for me because while I prefer the outcome of striping tape more, I tend to prefer manicures that have striping tape, I actually prefer using dotting tools more, so I would pick dotting tools over striping tape just because I think striping tape is kind of annoying to use. You do have to wait a lot longer for stuff to dry, and you also have to put top coat on in between layers, which I think is annoying. So I would choose dotting tools, but I'm curious to hear what you would choose, so let me know in the comments, and I will see you all in my next video. Bye.